Hi, this video is looking at the EDUQAS GCSE English Language Paper 2 reading exam. This video is focusing on questions 5 and 6. So remember, there's always two extracts in this exam. Normally, in a real exam, there'll be 200 years apart, but I've decided just for this video to show you how to do these questions. Do two extracts by the same authors. So the first extract is about James Cracknell and Ben Fogle crossing the ocean. So they're rowing across the Atlantic in just a little boat. And the second extract is the same two people going across the South Pole. So question 5. This is the first question in the exam where you have to use both texts. And the question this one is, using information from both texts, explain briefly the weather conditions faced by Fogle in the Atlantic Ocean and the South Pole. So info for question 5 then, it's the same as question 1 and 3, but it's for both texts. So basically it's comprehension, but you put it into sentences. As it's 4 marks, you only need to pick out 2 quotes from each text. You don't need to compare in this question and no point evidence to explain, or you don't need to analyse or explain your answers. Remember, if it's a low mark question, so 1 mark, 2 mark, 3 mark, 4 mark, it is basically comprehension. So find the quotes the examiner wants you to find and put it into a sentence. Like I say, you don't need to compare. You get no marks for comparing in this question. So it'll be a waste of time. Remember, it's a 4 mark question. You've got 5 minutes to do it. It is quite an easy question. It's a really good chance to get 4 marks out of 4. Don't worry if you feel like repeating points from previous questions. So this question's about the weather. Maybe if question 2 or question 4 you talked about maybe something to do with analysing the sort of the weather in your answer, it's absolutely fine again to repeat the same quotes. Be clear which texture you're talking about. A biggest thing that students do wrong in 5 and 6 is they don't make it clear which extract they're talking about. If you don't make it clear to the examiner, you'll get a big fat 0. Okay, so remember there's 2 extracts then. Make it clear whichever way you feel best. So you could put source 1 or source 2. In a real exam where it's 2 extracts from 2 different people, you could use their surnames or just use your common sense in any way to make it clear. So really simply, I'm going to choose the one about the rowing across the Atlantic. I'm going to call the Atlantic, and the one about trekking across the South Pole, I'm going to call it the South Pole. Remember, it's both texts and it's the weather conditions. So remember, anything that's not to do with the weather don't include, so you won't get marks. So anytime they mention it being thunder or snow or rain or sleet, whatever, you're looking for 2 quotes from each extract. And remember, it's brief, it's just comprehension. So maybe if it's 4 quotes, you're probably looking for 4 bullet points. Okay. So if you want to find these extracts, if you just type in Ben Fogle GCSE English Language, they're easy to find. Although you don't really need to look at the extracts really, because we're just explaining how to do the video. What we learn in this video, you can just do some mocks and just use the techniques we've learned here. So you would highlight 2 or 3 quotes in each extract about just the weather. Remember, it's only 4 marks, 2 marks for each. Here are the ones I highlighted. We'll talk about them in a sec. So remember, this is how I'd want you to structure it. So 2 separate paragraphs, one with Atlantic, one with South Pole, and then really just pick out the quotes about the weather and put them into a sentence. You should make it a sentence. You shouldn't just copy down quotes. So just do a little sentence starter each time with Fogle or he, and then put the sentence. So I've put, Fogle says there was a 50-mile-an-hour ever increasing wind. He also says there was the sound of thunder. And for the South Pole one, he says that bitterly cold winds push the temperatures as low as 50. He also says it never rained once. So really simple. I'm not analysing. I'm not comparing. This is all the examiner wants you to do. You might think this is easy, and you'd be right. It's an easy question. It's just testing your comprehension skills and picking out the correct quotes. And all the examiner would do would be to tick your quotes. Easy peasy, 4 out of 4. Okay, if we move on to question 6. Okay, so question 6 is, again, both of these texts are about expeditions. Compare the difficulties Cracknell and Fogle endured on their expeditions. Okay, so it's the same as question 5, but you need more quotes. The question is worth 10 marks this time. So this means you need to pick out 4 or 5 quotes from each text. You don't need to compare in this question. I will talk about that in a second. And again, you don't need to explain. I'll talk about that in a second. Okay, so again, you can use previous quotes and previous questions in this answer. Okay, and again, be clear which one you're talking about. Like we talked about before, you could call them source 1, source 2. In a normal exam, you could refer the extracts by their surnames. But again, I'm just going to use the one about the Atlantic Ocean, I'm going to call Atlantic, and the one about the South Pole, I'm going to call South Pole. Okay, so you'll notice here in the question, it does say compare. So I would say if you're someone who's looking for a grade 4, 5, 6, maybe even 7, you don't need to compare in this question. If you're someone really going for the grade 9, you will. This video is more aimed at 4, 5, 6, 7. So you can get 8 out of 10 on this question, but by using exactly the same techniques we just used in question 5. Same with explain. You don't need to explain. Just put your quotes embed them into a sentence, and you can get 8 out of 10. Okay, so this question then, you're looking at both the extracts again, and you're looking at the difficulties that Cracknell and Fogel had to put up with on their expedition. So, for example, James Cracknell and Fogel on the Atlantic one, their boat capsizes. That's basically what the extract is about. And then the South Pole one, they had loads of problems. So they couldn't eat enough food. It was bitterly cold, and so on. Okay, so again, yeah. So if you went through the extracts anytime they were really cold, or were they hungry, or the boat capsized, any sort of negative things that went on, this is what the question's looking for. So again, this time now, you're looking for 4 or 5 quotes in each extract about what the difficulties the men faced. Highlight them like this, and then same again, put them into a sentence. Okay, so again, I'm going to do my paragraph. There's one about my Atlantic Ocean. That's one about the South Pole. And all I'm going to do is put my quotes embed them into a sentence with a sentence starter that is linked to the question. So again, it's the difficulties they faced on their expeditions. So the men had to deal with an ever increasing wind at 50 miles an hour. This is the Atlantic one, the rowing one. Fogel had to row during frenzy conditions and a monstrous wave. The boat capsized during their voyage, the boat collapsing on top of me. James was lost for a time in the water during the trip. There was still no sign of James. They lost their personal items in the water. All our worldly possessions drifted away. The South Pole one, Fogel says he thought he was going to die when he nearly fell into a crevasse. Fogel got frostbite, then burnt my lips, got blisters on my feet and hypothermia. Cracknell also had medical problems such as a chest infection. The men had to suffer difficult weather, temperatures as low as 50 degrees centigrade and Celsius. And then the men had to deal with long freezing days. So again, all the examiner would do is mark my quotes. Like I say, this would get you 8 out of 10. If you're someone's looking for 9 or 10, you could maybe zoom into a few of these quotes. So you could zoom into monstrous and say, this shows the wave that was on Fogel was dominating and intimidating. You could maybe zoom into the word frenzied and talk it being like they were mowing, the conditions were very manic and intense. Yeah. So if you want to do that, but I would say it's the last question in the exam. It's actually on average the question the students get the lowest mark on. So I would say do it like I've taught you here. You can get 8 out of 10, and that would be really good. Okay. Any questions? Leave a comment in the